this week we're going to talk about fiber today, the different types of fiber and the different types of constipation, kind of how to address some of those, and then underlying root causes of why constipation might be there. So, a lot to get through today. So, constipation, it's not really a fiber problem, although that can be an issue for a lot of people. But let's talk about some of the real root causes. So, if fiber alone fixed constipation, most people wouldn't still be struggling with constipation because they've tried that, right? A lot of advice most of the time is just eat more fiber. But many people, when they eat fiber, they get worse or they get stuck, kind of depending on doing everything right. So today we're going to try to simplify that and give you some tools you can use for this constipation issue. Constipation, it can look like skipping days. Ideally, 1 to 3 times a day is a really normal bowel movement, and really 2 to 3 times a day is even more optimal. So hard, dry stool can be a form of constipation, straining, bloating, not fully emptying. All these can be signs that there's some issues going on in that colon. The goal is we're trying to get efficient, we're trying to get complete, we're trying to get comfortable elimination. And we're going to talk about how we can do that. So 3 things that your body needs for healthy bowel movements. Movement, you need motility, you need that gut to squeeze, so that colon to squeeze, and you need moisture, so hydration, and then you need that nervous system signal to be there, that digestive piece, the vagus nerve talking to the gut. That's important in that signaling. So fiber helps, but it's not addressing all 3, right? So if your fiber maybe helped a little bit, you might need one of these other pieces of the puzzle. So let's talk about different types of fiber. So sometimes it's the right kind of fiber that you might be missing. So different fibers do different things. Using the wrong type of fiber can really be frustrating and can cause symptomatology. So we need to match the pattern of constipation to the correct type of fiber that you might need. So pattern number 1, slow transit time. So if you have slow transit time, things just aren't moving. What's happening is your colon is sluggish. You have weak peristalsis. So peristalsis is that squeezing action that we get, right? So whenever you eat food, it actually causes peristalsis in that colon. And then you have a low urge to kind of need to go to the bathroom. So the best strategy for that is insoluble fiber. Examples of insoluble fibers: leafy greens, vegetable skins, whole vegetables, and then a partial is like flax and chia. But you're trying to get those whole vegetables in, that insoluble fiber. Celery, like that stringy stuff on celery, that's insoluble fiber. That's the type of fiber that helps this slow transit time. But it adds bulk to the stools. So you have to make sure to definitely be hydrated while you do this. But it's when you add bulk to the fiber, you're adding that stimulation to the colon to help squeeze. And so we typically pair it with movement. So if you ever take a dog on a walk, usually they have to poop somewhere on that walk. So walking or just movement stimulates that colon to work properly. Hydration, you need to drink water, especially the more fiber you have, the more hydration you need. And then minerals, electrolytes are super, super important in this realm of constipation as well. So insoluble fiber paired with hydration, electrolytes, and movement is what slow transit time people a lot of the times need. If you do too much insoluble fiber too fast, you'll get bloating without any progress. So just be careful of that. Add a little bit in at a time, and as you tolerate it more, add a little bit more. Pattern 2, hard, dry stool. It's there, but it's hard to pass type of thing. It's stool sitting too long. As stool sits in your colon, part of your colon's job is to get water out of it. And so water gets pulled out and it leaves you with hard, dry stool. So the best type of fiber for this is soluble fiber. So that's things like the psyllium husk that people sometimes use. That's the chia seeds. That's the oats if you're tolerating oats. Cooked root really helps. And why? It's because it's holding onto water for us. That soluble fiber, that's what it's doing. It's softening the stool. But you must increase your water intake. So if you're having hard, dry stools, that's a sign of dehydration. So if you're not drinking enough water, that's usually what I do first before I even add any fiber, is make sure you drink enough water, see if that helps fix it. The second thing is adding some soluble fiber. Psyllium husk does wonders for a lot of people, even in supplement form. It is really good. And you can get a powder of that and add it to foods that you're eating too. Psyllium husk. Pattern 3, bloating and constipation. So fiber makes me worse. So what's happening? Your gut bugs are reacting to that fiber that you're eating. Gut bacteria ferment and it leads to gas, and then that leads to discomfort. So the best strategy for this is using a gentle, low fermentable type of fiber. So the PHGG, or partially hybridized guar, acacia fiber, cooked zucchini, carrots, kiwi. These are all low fermentable type things that can help with that bloating. So sometimes just adding the right kind of fiber can really help. It supports your bowel movements without that excessive gas. So if you're eating some fibery things and you're having a lot of gas with it, sometimes PHGG is really good. Sometimes acacia fiber can work really good too. What you want to avoid, like people who take inulin or chicory root, that can make things worse. That can make bloating worse. Large amounts of raw vegetables for these people can really cause a lot of issues. So make sure you're cooking your vegetables, starting low and slow with the fiber. And if you go too fast, a lot of times you'll get discomfort. So just be careful with that. Low and slow. And then you're trying to support digestion alongside of it. So doing some hydrochloric acid, doing some digestive enzymes can be really helpful for these people as well. All right, so pattern number 4, incomplete emptying. I go, but it doesn't feel like I empty all the way. What's happening with that? It's often not a fiber issue. It's typically a nervous system issue. So it's pelvic floor or coordination kind of problem. The nervous system's not firing the right muscles, right? So the best strategy for that is actually just balancing your fiber intake's good, but your posture. So squatty potty can be a game changer for these people. So if you don't know, your colon, when you sit on a toilet, isn't in the proper position. So when you put your feet up, a squatty potty is basically lifting those feet up 8 inches, 10 inches, and it puts your colon in a better position to defecate. That's more a relaxed position for the colon, and so you're not straining as hard. That can help that pelvic floor big time. So squatty potties, that helps fix the mechanics of the colon, and so that can really help some people that don't empty all the way. So hard, dry stool, water, insoluble fiber, slow, infrequent bowel movements, insoluble fiber plus movement, right? Bloating, think more gentle fibers, pH, GG, and then incomplete, fixing those mechanics. So the squatty potty. Okay, now we have that on board. Some people are like, yeah, I'm doing some fiber things, but I'm still having constipation issues. So root causes. So fiber is a tool. Sometimes it's not the fix. If constipation persists, we try to look upstream. What's the body telling us? Hydration and electrolytes can be huge for people. The colon pulls water from the stool, like I said earlier, and low hydration equals dry stool. So the best thing you can do is add water or add minerals to your water. So not just drinking plain water. Add a pinch of sea salt to the water, and that can help immensely for some people. Low stomach acid. There is a cascade of events that happen when you eat, but if you don't have enough stomach acid, some of those signals aren't getting to where they go. So that can lead to low downstream movements, low transit time. Some clues: if you eat and then you're getting bloaty, if you get full really quickly, those are signs you might not have enough stomach acid. HCl is really good, or apple cider vinegar, really good for this. And then how you can support that: slow meals. What that means is 20 to 30 times, make sure you're chewing your food. Bitter foods can help, or just taking some bitters before you eat can just help motility going on. And like I said, apple cider vinegar, typically post meal, is better, and that can help get things moving as well. The next root cause: poor bile flow. Bile stimulates that bowel movement. If you're a person that struggles with fats, that could be a sign. Or if you have light colored stools, that could be a sign. There's a couple of avenues of this. Sometimes it's a acetyl-L-carnitine deficiency. Sometimes just converting fat to energy can really help that bile flow out too. But how you can support this in general is just bitters, really, really helpful for these people. Timing your meals correctly, and sometimes the way we eat too. If you get into the type of foods that you eat, some people just don't do well with higher fats. And so that could be their problem. Maybe you're eating too much fat, and that's just stressing your gallbladder out and liver out. So definitely healthy fats. If you're eating processed fats, that could be one of the reasons why this is happening. But bitters typically help stimulate that bile flow. Things like Tudka, things like wild orange and ginseng, some of those bitters really help get this stuff moving, the bile flow moving. Sometimes even just taking ox bile can be helpful for some people. So bile flow. And then trying to address what's causing our bile flow to be slow. So that's things that go into like parasites and mold and things that slow down that bile flow in some people. And then the next root cause here in the nervous system. If you're stuck in fight or flight, like we've talked about, digestion's going to be hampered. So parasympathetic is that rest and digest, and then stress kind of shuts digestion down. So if you're having constipation, you could be stuck in that fight or flight system. So some of the strategies we've talked about before is just breathing before you start eating, getting yourself out of fight or flight, doing that physiological sigh type breathing. Slow your meals down. If you're not eating on the go, make sure you're eating in at the table and not eating on the go. Make sure you're chewing your food all the way. Take a bite and put your fork down and chew it 20, 30 times. Make sure you're not watching something while you're eating because then you get distracted and you don't chew your food. So these things can be really helpful for that nervous system piece. Humming before you start eating, that stimulates your vagus nerve. Tapping on the side of your neck stimulates that vagus nerve to get ready. But even mastication, the act of chewing is telling your stomach something's coming, so it gets that nervous system prepped for food and it's secreting enzymes and HCl and all of that. So slow down and get that nervous system incorporated. One thing I like to do too is as I pray over my meal is I put my face over my food so I smell it. It gets your mouth watering. And so that's enzymes getting secreted, getting ready, that prepping that nervous system for what's coming. So slow down, pray over your meal, get some chewing in, and that helps that nervous system prep. A cause can be just a mineral deficiency. Magnesium's huge, and magnesium helps relax your intestines. That's one of the things that can help get people going. Most people in our society today are probably deficient in magnesium, and it's one of the things I see most commonly supplemented with. Movement stimulates motility, and then magnesium relaxes the colon. That can start moving through. Daily walking's super huge for that colon. And then, like I said, when we take our dogs for a walk, they usually poop, right? And that's because that movement is stimulating motility, and that helps. And then magnesium as appropriate. There's multiple different forms of magnesium. Oxide and citrate usually help bring water to the colon and help flush the colon, but other forms can be helpful too for some people. So it's just finding the one that's right for you. And addressing the underlying causes of the colon. If you've had chronic issues here for a long time, a lot of times I'll suggest doing a stool test, and that can give us some insight on what might be going on inflammation wise. Maybe you're eating some foods that are causing some leaky gut and causing some system to slow down. And so that's another great tool. But constipation, you think of it as that system is being slowed down. So it might not just be a colon issue. It could be the whole body that's signaling. Is there something else going on? Is there a bile flow issue? Is there low stomach acid? Is there a type of fiber that maybe we need to add in for our good gut bugs to help restore things? So if we had to kind of simplify it a little bit, one thing you can do is hydrate with minerals. Huge. Eat whole foods, get that fiber, all the different types of fiber, movement daily, and then slow down when you're eating, and then use the right type of fiber. So you can go back to this video again, and there's those 4 different types of fiber that we talked, or 4 different transit times that we talked about. And whichever one is you're fitting in, maybe you can try some of those different types of fiber to help see if that gets things moving. So when you support, the system kind of improves. But let's go back and we'll cover the slow transit time, right? Things just aren't moving. So the best strategy we had was insoluble fiber for that. Leafy greens, vegetable skins, whole vegetables there. And that adds bulk to it. The next one was hard dry stool. So that hydration issue a lot of the time. So make sure you're drinking water. And then soluble fiber helps that. So psyllium husk, chia seeds, those type of things can really help with that. The third pattern, bloating plus constipation, and fiber makes people worse. That's that fermentation process. So low fermentable fiber, gentle low fermentable fiber, the PHGG, acacia fiber, really good for that. And then cooked zucchini, cooked carrots, good for that. And then those people want to avoid the inulin, chicory root, and large amounts of raw vegetables. So cook that section, really cook your veggies. And then incomplete emptying is usually that coordination, that pelvic floor. So get that squatty potty going. Okay, so if you're having issues outside of trying to balance your fiber, a lot of times I recommend getting that stool test done that can get us some information on inflammation and dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is just imbalance of bacteria in that realm. Sometimes there's infections, sometimes there's parasites, sometimes there's mold there, sometimes it's just a lot of zonulin, which is leaky gut stuff. So you can give us some insight there on what we might need to do, and we can personalize that plan a little bit better. So go out, experiment with some of these fibers and see if you notice a difference in that constipation. And maybe it's as easy as getting a squatty potty for some people, and that can be great too. You guys got any questions before I hop off here? The general recommendation for hydration is half your body in ounces per day. So I'm 200 pounds and I would drink around 100 ounces a day. I do add minerals to my water. All right, guys, have a great week.